Hi, everybody. Welcome to this session and hope you're enjoying the event thus far. As the title suggests, I'm going to be walking you through common migration patterns, what teams need to consider while migrating to the Jamstack, and how to avoid common pitfalls when moving from a legacy stack to the Jamstack. I'm Bhavana Srinivas, a senior solutions engineer at Netlify, and I'm really glad to be talking to you all today. While the concept of static websites is an old one, Netlify coined the term Jamstack, a web architecture that pre-builds the site and serves it on a CDN. This architecture, when set up the right way, will bring all the benefits of speed and security for your web applications. But there are a lot of moving parts to consider while building a Jamstack application, and this could range from the edge network and setting up cache and validation to domains and DNS records for go live, as well as the entire CI/CD workflow to build these applications. Netlify aims to provide a first-class developer experience for teams building Jamstack apps while providing the infrastructure needed to build and host these web applications. I have worked with multiple enterprise teams to ensure that they bake in the best practices right from start, while also ensuring that the migration and go live from the old to the new stack is extremely smooth and risk-free. This talk is going to dive into that process and leave you with a prescriptive checklist of how to migrate your web applications to the Jamstack with Netlify. So the first thing you want to do is to audit your web applications and the different aspects of it. If you want to migrate to a new stack, you need to know exactly what you're migrating from and what functionality you need for the new site. So let's start with the technology. Understanding how you build your site, where it is hosted, and what tools you use to build it are very crucial. This is because the level of effort necessary for the migration will be determined by this analysis. Say, for instance, you have an e-commerce application built on a monolith. Then you will have to account for the fact that the individual services like payments, checkout flow, storefront, fulfillment, etc. will potentially have to be broken into standalone services, while your front end is also decoupled and built statically. So in terms of re-evaluating, some things to consider are listed here in this slide. So once you have the answers to these questions, you can determine which parts to keep and which ones to change up. Next, you want to understand the people who are involved in the site, be it building it, maintaining it, creating content, or helping scale. Typically, different teams care about different aspects of the site. So understanding how these different teams work with each other and understanding their workflows helps in maintaining their needs even on the Jamstack. For instance, who builds the site and who deploys the site? Are there multiple teams like front-end, back-end, and DevOps involved? If so, how do they all work together? Who is the business owner of the site and what do all these different teams care about? For instance, content editors might care about their content workflows, the approval process, and how soon the content that they create will go live on the site. While the SRE and the DevOps teams will be more concerned with scaling the site to serve the millions of users or managing cache and validation and visibility into errors, requests, and responses. Now that we know who's involved, let's do a complete analysis of what is working and what isn't on the current site. For instance, is the site fast in some regions but slow in others? And is this because you're serving all your customers from one server in one region, or are you actually using a CDN? Or are the developers not able to ship features fast enough because of the dependency on multiple teams? For instance, front-end teams might be building out the app or the web pages, but they might have to depend on DevOps to actually spin up environments for testing, staging, and QA. And this kind of dependency can lead to a huge delay in shipping products because sometimes even up to 3 months. So it's really worth understanding why certain processes are set up the way they are and digging into multiple levels into the whys. So if multiple teams are involved in building a site, including front-end and DevOps, what does that handoff look like? Is it ideal? And who is paged when the site breaks down? If there's no DevOps teams involved, How much time is spent by the front-end team on cache invalidation, rollbacks, or scaling the CDN? Migrating to a new stack might be a chance to address all of these different pain points. So all of this auditing and initial work will help you get to why you actually want to migrate. And typically what I hear from customers as the reasons for migrating are, first of all, modernizing the web stack. Monolithic architectures are difficult to scale, cumbersome to build and deploy, and ultimately make it difficult for front-end teams to improve the user experience easily. 2. Performance gains. By virtue of serving static assets on a CDN, Jamstack dramatically reduces the amount of time spent during runtime to actually serve up the site. So this really boosts site performance. And 3, being able to go to market faster and using modern web tools to push new features out quickly for your customers is something that teams really care about. So whatever your reason is, knowing the whys will really help drive the project as well as focus on the right things as you build. Now that you know why you want to migrate, the next step is to determine which web property you'll start with, finding the right people to build it, as well as the infrastructure to build and host it. As part of our enterprise engagements, we work with teams to understand the different properties in play for the migration. And per property, we dig into the following, and I encourage you to think about this as well. Firstly, what is the functionality of the app? And these are mostly 3 kinds. One is it could be mostly content driven. So this includes campaigns, landing pages, and .coms that are mostly static. So sometimes the low risk projects like these to prove out the ROI of the Jamstack is the way to go and a kind of project that you want to start with. This way you can use this to prove the value of the Jamstack to the stakeholders and gain their trust to keep moving forward. Or it could be more of a web app kind of functionality where you have authentication, logins, databases, and dynamic functionality at runtime. So if you're sure of the Jamstack and you've seen some success with it, then moving to a more complex web application for the Jamstack is a natural next step. So the key here will be to decouple the front end from the back end, but also break different services into their own standalone applications. And here, auditing your third-party APIs will come in handy because you'll really know what are the different services you need to build out and different services you need to actually use within your web application. And third, the kind of sites that we see are large sites with multiple pages, say an e-commerce site with 100K products, and so that'll naturally result in a much larger site. And so migrating a large site in one go might seem daunting. And here what we've seen work is to break the site down into multiple sections. So these could be logical sections based on who owns it. For instance, product or engineering or your front-end teams. Or it could be, functional breakdown of the site saying how often they get updated. Say the press release section is its own microsite because any content changes there don't have to depend on the rest of the site and can go live much quicker. So this is a whole other topic that I've written a blog on, how to build large sites on Netlify, and you can find that on the Netlify blog. So based on the team's familiarity with the Jamstack, proficiency with building decoupled web applications, and the goals for your site, we determine which of your web properties to start with. Now, the kind of application you want to build will determine who will build it and also the tools needed to make it a reality. Jamstack applications put front-end developers front and center and also give them the flexibility to choose the tooling that is appropriate for their sites. Instead of having to work within the constraints of a monolithic CMS, developers can pick and choose the tools they need to build the application. And with the Jamstack, developers are also required to have less exotic proprietary skills and can draw from the larger, more portable, and more available modern front-end developer community. This makes their skill set transferable and also very relevant in today's modern web development scene. And what you need to build a Jamstack app is pretty different from what you need for a monolithic app. Decoupling is the name of the game. So everything from code to content and building and hosting sites are separate. The main ingredients of a Jamstack site are the code that lives in a Git provider, the content source, which would come from a headless CMS, a static site generator that will pre-build the site into static assets, and finally, a platform or infrastructure that will help you build and host the site. While these are all extremely broad areas, there are a lot of options when it comes to choosing each of these, and I'll quickly walk you through some key points to consider for each of them. Let's start with the static site generator. Choosing an SSG goes back to the kind of application you're building. So if it is a content-heavy site, find a tool which prioritizes generating pages and URLs, such as Jekyll, Hugo, or Next. These are good examples here. If it is a complex app-style functionality, then Gatsby or Next.js are really good choices here because they come with more advanced client-side features which are ready to go. And if you're thinking of building a large site, then the pre-build time is also going to be a little on the higher side. And for these, I recommend Hugo or 11T because they have really incredible generation times. And then, of course, based on your team's proficiency and language of choice, there's a static site generator for most languages out there. So that might be a key consideration for your teams. Now, besides all of this, choosing a static site generator is closely linked to the infrastructure that they will run on. Netlify is technology agnostic and can run any static site generator on it. This is extremely crucial because as your teams grow, it is possible that some teams may lean towards, say, a Gatsby, while others choose Next.js or Nuxt for their view-based applications based on what they're building and what they're comfortable with. So Netlify gives your teams the flexibility to build in the language they are comfortable with, while also giving them room to try out the best framework at any point. For instance, internally itself, the netlify.com site is an 11T site, while app.netlify.com is a React application. So they both are built on the same platform, Netlify, and they benefit from the same workflows while being two separate applications owned by two different teams. Now, when it comes to a content source, most teams already have a content system in place, be it on the Jamstack or not. So not much of that needs to change as you migrate to the Jamstack. Because a lot of monolithic CMSs like WordPress, Drupal, and Sitecore now have a headless version that can be used with these Jamstack applications. So based on your needs, one route is to migrate using a new headless CMS overall, or another is to continue using the headless versions of your existing CMS. So this not only reduces your migration work, but also gives your content teams the workflows that they're already used to and have set up, while giving you the performance benefits of the Jamstack for these new versions, new sections of your site. Finally, like building and hosting the site, finding the infrastructure to actually do so is again one of the more critical steps that your teams will have to take as you make the migration. Based on the goals for your website, you want to find a platform or a cloud solution that not only provides the infrastructure but maintains it and makes it easy for developers to build and deploy sites globally and also build applications and sites in the framework of their choice. So you want to choose a platform or a vendor who is future-looking, constantly innovating, and can support the needs of your web properties as you grow. At Netlify, we focus on empowering the front-end developer to build sites by pushing code to Git while managing the rest of the review and the deploy workflow for them. So we provide a platform that will take care of the building, the hosting, the infrastructure, scaling, and maintenance for your teams, so your team can focus on building the site. So on one side, what happens is we provide a great developer experience for front-end teams to help them develop better, faster, and with more confidence, which ultimately helps you achieve your business goals of going to market faster and releasing features faster. And on the other hand, we host the assets on our edge network and provide an amazing end user experience by taking the site closer to them. So this provides snappy sites and great experience during runtime, which helps boost SEO, increase visitors, and ultimately conversions as well. All other primitives needed to expand the scope of your web application, like build automation, serverless functions, and redirects, are all part of the platform to help build complex web applications at scale. Finally, we are here, the migration. You do not have to migrate your entire site on one day and do a big bang migration. Based on your timelines for migration, we help customers adopt the Jamstack gradually, page by page, if you need to do so. Besides those who are building a whole new site from scratch using the Jamstack, over 90% of enterprise customers I have worked with add the Jamstack to their current site incrementally. And this is a low-risk move while also getting the benefits of speed for the Jamstack sections of your site. Incrementally migrating to the Jamstack on Netlify is possible thanks to the Netlify redirects and proxy API. Phil spoke about this in the first session and even demonstrated how one line of our redirects enables wildcard proxying of all the paths requested on your domain to an equivalent path on your existing stack. So this way, content on Netlify will be served by us, and any other paths will be proxied from your existing stack or your legacy infrastructure. I highly recommend you watch that session to understand the power of this approach using Netlify redirects. So let's break down the migration into phases. Phase 0 would look something like this, where your site is on legacy stack, and probably you have a CDN and a proxy layer to route your user traffic to the website or the application or any other services. And as you start building certain pages or sections on Netlify, they will now be hosted on our edge network. So when users hit these routes, say /product or /docs, they will be routed to the sites on our edge via the proxy layer. And as more and more of the site is built on Netlify, we highly recommend you add all of your business logic to our edge, including redirects and proxies, to give your end users a uniform experience on your domain. So phase 2 involves building and hosting your web properties on Netlify. And then parts of the site that are built on Netlify will be served by us. And any parts that we cannot serve, we proxy to your legacy infrastructure from our edge. This removes the need for your existing CDN, as the Netlify edge will now take over. Finally, you can retire your legacy monolith completely after completing the Jamstack migration of your site and decoupling the rest of your backend services. That said, migrations of domains and DNS hosting have typically been sources of stress for folks involved. And it doesn't have to be that way. Bringing a new domain to Netlify is straightforward, and we provide the DNS records to host on a high-performance edge and free SSL certs using Let's Encrypt. But while bringing an existing domain over, which is typically the case during a migration, there are many more things to coordinate in order to have minimal impact to your customers accessing the site. So we have chalked out a plan for zero downtime migrations that will ensure SSL certificates, domain names, DNS records are all migrated smoothly and with prior planning. This is the last but crucial step of your checklist. Again, choosing a provider who can engage and support your team as you migrate will make or break your site migration. I'll leave you all with some case studies that put this entire process in action and also came out very successfully, reaping the benefits of the Jamstack as well as the workflows that Netlify provides. Spring is a platform where anyone can go create a custom e-commerce storefront. And they have over 5 million creators who use their service. They needed a web platform that's flexible and supports rapid scale because they were shifting from a monolith using Ruby on Rails to a decoupled architecture using microservices. They first decoupled different parts of their application like storefront, payments, fulfillment, checkout, etc., and built the front end of their application on Netlify. They also transitioned to Next.js from this Ruby on Rails architecture. This was made possible by Netlify's agnostic architecture and deep integration with Next. We have a detailed case study with them on our customer stories page, and this also talks about how their build time reduced from over 90 minutes to 1 minute, and how the performance of the site also improved, ultimately giving their creators much more conversions on their sites. Ample is also speaking at the same event, so you can listen to yet another customer's migration journey straight from them. And that's it. Thank you all for joining me today, and hope you have a better sense of how to migrate to the Jamstack. I'll be around at the event, so do ping me if you have any questions. You can also reach us at this URL if you'd like to discuss your migration. Have a wonderful rest of the event and a beautiful day.